The U.S. military pullout from Syria is now underway. According to a breaking statement from a U.S. Army colonel in charge of the fight against ISIS, troops right now are being taken out of the country. It's unclear how many troops are being withdrawn today, and the military says it will not provide a timetable on when all 2,000 soldiers on the ground will come home. In mid-December, Trump said they'd all be home by the end of January. When he made that announcement and the accompanying video statement, he stunned his allies, even his own cabinet members, with that shocking announcement. That rather rash decision led the Secretary of Defense, James Mattis, to resign. But since then, Trump walked back that firm commitment that troops are coming home soon. And this week in Israel, National Security Advisor John Bolton laid out several conditions before he said any withdrawal would take place. But despite those new stringent conditions, the military confirms equipment, gear, and troops are on their way home. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said yesterday in this region, the U.S. is committed to the fight against ISIS, but it's time for the U.S. forces to leave the area.
President Trump has made the decision to bring our troops home from Syria. We always do, and now is the time. But this isn't a change of mission. We remain committed to the complete dismantling of ISIS, the ISIS threat, and the ongoing fight against radical Islamism in all of its forms. But as President Trump has said, we're looking to our partners to do more, and in this effort, we will do so going forward, together.
With me in studio to talk about this breaking development, I have our senior international affairs correspondent, Owen Alterman, and our Middle East correspondent, Emily Rose. Emily, I want to, before we talk about the contradictions and confusion about this rollout and what, if anyone really understands what's going on within the White House, the fact is it's happening. Whether or not it was predicted, if it was known beforehand, it is happening. So from a perspective of Middle East security, the fact that troops are leaving Syria now, what does that do perhaps in terms of a vacuum? How quickly will it be filled by perhaps Iranian-funded militias or other groups if the troops are not there?
Yes, if we look at that exact area where those U.S. troops are stationed, we know that it's just adjacent to a volatile border, that is the Syria-Iraq border. And as you rightly mentioned, there are Iranian-backed militias that run amok along that border, and they could, in fact, fill the vacuum. I've spoken to Israeli security officials who believe that even could be the case. And also, we have to look at the message that it sends to U.S. allies on the ground. There are U.S.-backed forces all across, not just in Syria, but in many other countries in the Middle East. And if we look at the message that sends to them, it might send a worrying message to them. Even the support that they give, the monetary support, the other types of backing that they get might be pulled out from underneath their feet.
But the U.S. presence there, I mean, just the fact that there were U.S. soldiers there, that alone reportedly prevented Iran from doing a lot of the smuggling of weapons and components that they would have otherwise done in the northern part of the country, just because the U.S. was there. They didn't want to get entangled in any kind of bloody battle.
Not just that, Iran is very much looking to build what they refer to, or what is commonly referred to as a Shiite corridor. It wants to make a landmass that allows it the ability to go all the way through past that Syria-Iraq border. And without those U.S. troops in the way, it can sort of complete the puzzle of that land corridor.
All right, I want to talk about now the timetable. We don't know the details, but as I mentioned before, Trump about a month ago said the troops are coming home. It was a 30-day order. They'd be home in January. He then walked that back, saying ISIS is not completely defeated. They're largely defeated. It's still a continuing fight. You had John Bolton in Israel this week saying there's new conditions in place. The troops have they're going to stay on the ground, at least in the near term. Days after Bolton leaves, no, the troops are leaving. They're leaving right now. We don't know how many or how fast, but the fact is they're on their way out of the country. Did Bolton, who was aware? Was it Pompeo? Was it Bolton? Does anyone know what Trump is planning from one day to the next with this kind of stuff?
Jeff, look, the full set of material facts is just not out there. All that we have from this morning is this one statement from the Pentagon spokesperson, which says that the withdrawal has started. He says because of operational reasons, doesn't say what the timetable would be. I don't even think it says necessarily what the extent would be. There are ways of squaring the circle, of squaring this, for example, with what John Bolton said. It's also possible there was confusion. It obviously doesn't look good. It gives off a sense of confusion, a sense of lack of professionalism, and a lack of predictability, which is itself problematic. But look, the United States, Jeff, has a wide margin of error in its foreign policy, and I suspect that at this point in the region, we are well past the point in time where people are concerned about the process. I think the focus is going to be on the result. whether those U.S. troops do or do not leave Syria, under what conditions, and who does actually fill that vacuum.
We don't know if it's just a platoon or a battalion or hundreds and hundreds of troops. We just don't know how many are leaving. But this certainly, from an international perspective, would rattle America's allies, certainly in the Middle East, perhaps across Europe as well.
Oh, yeah, and that was talked about when Donald Trump announced this decision. And if, in fact, the withdrawal is moving forward in its full scope, under whatever timetable is being used, of course that would upset American allies, first and foremost Israel, first and foremost the Kurds, we should say, but also Israel and also others in the region. But, Jeff, it's just not clear that that's the full story of what's going on. Again, the full set of material facts isn't known. Yep. There seems to be confusion, at least in the communication, and a sense of a lack of professionalism and predictability, and those are problematic. But again, I think keeping our eyes on the ball, I think for people in this region, the real key is the result. What actually does happen in northeastern Syria, and that's what we just don't know.